Hi there, my name is Brian Tortorelli. I'm coming to you from the University of Central Florida at the Center for Research and Education in Arts, Technology, and Entertainment, which is CREATE for short. I am an artist and an art teacher. The techniques I'll be showing you today are shading techniques for using charcoal, and these are techniques that I've picked up in teaching and picked up from other teachers. So hopefully you can integrate them into your own work, or maybe some of the techniques that you show some of your students. So thanks for joining me, and I hope you get something out of this. Very important to have the proper materials when you're doing a charcoal drawing. Compressed charcoal sticks are my personal favorite. You can get such rich solid blacks with compressed charcoal sticks that you can't get with some of the softer charcoal and some other media that I'll show you in a second. And you can see you can get a full box of them, so you always have one ready. Having a pencil handy, very important. This is not a must, but don't feel bad about it if you want to sketch out where everything goes in your drawing first, very lightly with a light pencil. This one's a number 2.5. I recommend a 2.5 or a 4. Or if you have professional drawing pencils, you can use an HB or say a 2F or a 2H or 4H or something like that. But to have a pencil with a good eraser. Of course, if you have a pencil, you're going to want to have a sharpener. Erasers for charcoal, they do exist. My favorites, like a simple pink pearl style eraser, can work wonders with charcoal. It can really get up a lot of the black to get back to towards the white of the paper. In my experience, I've seen tons of different kinds of rubber erasers, soft, flexible ones like this, and they are very effective. Just depends on what your preference is, whether you want something more firm or more squishy. But also, I don't see a lot of people using hard plastic erasers. This one is really ragged because I've had it for many years and I've used it a lot with charcoal. It started out, it was nearly clear. If you find one of these little gems, pick it up. You'll be really surprised how much charcoal it will pick up. You may have different preferences for charcoal. That's why charcoal pencils come in all sorts of sizes and coating, whether they're wood or paper coated. Hard, medium, and soft, hard being lighter, soft being darker. They can be very, very easy to use, easy for traveling, and just because they're a little bit tidier. You don't get quite as dirty. If you're going to have a charcoal pencil, you'll probably want to have an emery board or one of these handy little boards with sandpaper attached, so you can get a fresh sheet when you're sanding down your charcoal to a point, if you want to use that. Also, vine charcoal and smaller compressed charcoal. A lot of people use these as well. With the small compressed charcoal, you can get very good rich blacks. With vine charcoal, they're usually a bit softer and you won't get as solid and smooth a black, but they're really quick and easy to use. Some optional supplies that I usually have around. Chamois is always very good to have around if you're doing some blending and you want something more even and you want to keep your hands cleaner. You can use a chamois for doing some blending. You will be able to erase a bit with the chamois, but you're not going to get all the way back to the white of the paper like you will with a lot of the erasers that you'll find on the market. And I always just like to have some damp paper towels. You might want to just quickly dry off or clean off your hands a little bit, get some of the heavier soot and charcoal off your hands so you can handle something else, or to clean up your work area, or to clean off your pencils and erasers and things like that. Very handy. Highly recommend having a few lying around. All right, light, absolutely essential to seeing in general, really. I mean, you can't see anything unless there's light reflecting off of objects and surfaces into your eyes so you can see. But light is so important with chiaroscuro because it's all about how light plays over a surface. So just as an example, we're going to use this brick, this box, and you can see the light is coming from the top right, and light is very simple, very, very simple. It just travels, just goes. There are no black holes in the still life bending the light or anything, so you can see that the light just comes down and you can see it hitting the top surface of this brick, and so you can only see three surfaces. So of course this one is the lightest, one of the surfaces is going to be the lightest, one is going to be the darkest, furthest away from the light of course. If the light's in the top right, bottom left, you're going to see that surface is going to be the darkest, and then the front surface is somewhere in between, leaning lighter or darker depending on your light source. So you can see the light hitting the top surface, but it's not directly hitting this surface. You can see the light passing over this edge. The light does not pass over the edge, turn around, make a little U-turn, and then come back and hit the surface, this front surface, right up under the edge. It just doesn't happen. That's not real. So what you see is the darkest area of this front surface of the box is going to be right up here under the edge, closest to the light, but because the light is not actually hitting that surface, it's not passing over, coming back, and then hitting here. So you'll notice that there is actually light that's passing over the edge, hitting the table surface, and then bouncing back onto the box, but that's really only down here. So you're actually going to see that up here is darker, and along this edge is darker, and a little bit lighter down here because of the reflected highlight. Now, sometimes it's very subtle, but knowing that that's the physics, that's the reality, and if you push that in the drawing, like I'll show you later with the charcoal, then your drawing will look a little bit more dynamic, a little more interesting, a little more real, really. So you've got the light hitting the top surface, and also with this face back here, the light is passing over this edge. It's not turning around and hitting up here, so the darkest area will be along here on this side surface. And of course there is light that is hitting the table out here, and some of that is reflecting back on the lower portions of this surface. So you get a little bit of a subtle reflected highlight. So when I'm explaining that and showing you how to do that in the drawing, I just want you to know what it looks like in reality first. Okay, for this first podcast, we're going to do a simple drawing. In the example I showed you, a box. Well, we're just going to go ahead and draw a cube. And later podcasts will go into actual drawing of still lifes from life. But I want to show you examples of how to use charcoal to achieve very strong contrast and wide range of values to create a chiaroscuro style drawing. So we've got our charcoal. Get a piece you're comfortable with. Using an entire fresh piece of compressed charcoal, not necessarily the best thing, because if you're trying to draw something smaller, you're going to have a harder time. Often I will break my pieces in half, and you can see this at one point was a half piece. No matter what, you're always going to have nice clean edges somewhere on the charcoal, so don't worry about having a fresh clean piece every time. Use every little bit. So since we're going to be drawing a cube, we know typically we can only see three sides of a cube, three surfaces. So we're going to go ahead and just do it out of your head. If you need to sketch it in first, go ahead and sketch in a cube, and I will show you how to model it and put in all the shadows and everything. Just so you can see what's going on in my beady little head, I'm going to go ahead and sketch in a quick cube, trying to use my whole paper, not draw some tiny little thing right in the center. I'll just go ahead and sketch something out real quick, making sure that my top and bottom lines on each surface are parallel to each other, left and right edges are parallel to each other. Trying my best to use whatever technique you need for sighting any of these angles and any of these edges. Get that bad boy. See, that only took a few seconds. Got sketched in very simply, and now you can see what I'm intending to do with charcoal. So I always like to start out with the darkest part first. Some people I've taken classes from have said, always go for the darkest part, and somehow that was ingrained in me, and that's in my style. I always start with the deepest, darkest part. How do we know what's the darkest? We don't. We have to know where the light's coming from. Since this is a drawing I'm doing out of my head, I'm deciding where the light is coming from. So in my drawing, I'm going to say the light is coming from the top left. So I'm just going to draw a little arrow there saying, okay, it's coming from the top left. So where's the darkest? The darkest face of this cube, it's going to be opposite the light. So the bottom right is going to be the face, is going to be the darkest. So since I know that the light is coming from the top left, it is not going to pass over this edge up here on the top right and then turn around and hit the surface here and light it up. So that's going to be the darkest. So I'm going to take my charcoal using an edge. No lines. There are going to be no lines in this drawing at all. You'll see what I mean as we go. We're only using values, areas of value, but I'm using the edge of my charcoal to create a sharp edge to this area. Might look like I'm starting with a line, but that line is going to quickly disappear as I use the edge of the charcoal to create an area of value. And since I also know that the light passes over this edge and is not hitting this edge and this side of the surface, that's also going to be pretty darn dark. Since this face is the darkest, I know that I can fill it in pretty good, but we don't want it black. You can always add more charcoal, but it's more difficult to convincingly take away. So I'm going to go ahead and just fill in. As you can see, I'm getting a little bit lighter as I go down further. I'm not using the tip of the charcoal, I'm using the edge. And I'm just going to try to even it out, letting the top and the left edges of this area be the darkest. As you can see, it's getting a little bit lighter as it goes down further. I'm going to make it pretty smooth. Up at the top and on the left. Okay? Now we move on to the next surface. The top, of course, is going to be the lightest, so we need the front surface is going to be in the middle somewhere. Now, since this front surface is going to be lighter, we just want to have a gentler hand with the charcoal. Still same technique, just less pressure. So I'm going to, again, using the edge, one of the edges of my charcoal, I'm going to start out shading in an area with this value. And you can run along here gently and go right up to the right face. There's no black line separating these different surfaces. There's no white edge where it they go up towards each other, don't quite meet, and there's a white line left. No, that does not exist. Those surfaces and those values go right up to each other. Nobody ran around the whole entire world with a Sharpie outlining everything like a comic book. There are no black lines or white lines separating values or surfaces. So you don't want to put that in your drawing. It'll look unrealistic. So, again, I'm using the edges of my charcoal to bring down those values. You can choose to make the front surface almost as dark as the darkest surface, or you can choose to make it very different. I'm trying to go somewhere in the middle. Okay, try to get a nice clean edge, as clean as you can with the side of the charcoal.